It is Father's Day today, and we're glad that all of you are here. And we're really glad that we have people who are watching us live this morning and will listen to us a little bit later in the day or the week. But in particular, we want to say to those of you who are fathers that we hope you have a really blessed day. We want to thank you for what you have done for all of us. And again, we hope your day is a wonderful day. You can tell by the title, it just so happens that we're making our way through the letter that Paul wrote to the church in Ephesus, and it's kind of dealing with families today. And we're near the end of that study, but while it's Father's Day, this kind of deals with families. But before I get into that subject, I want to remind you that the book of Ephesians appears to be written to Christians who are struggling. Christians who are struggling. Now, as soon as I say that, everybody in this audience and everybody who would listen to this any place would identify with that statement. Christians struggle. But normally when I say that, we're talking about the struggles that people have in everyday life, like the struggles with finances sometimes. Or maybe the struggles that you might have at work. Or maybe some other kinds of struggles like health struggles. And those come all the time. And so Greg announces about his mother, Zonell and Susan's mother, Pat's sister. Last week, she was really struggling at this time. Today, she's really struggling at this time. It appears to be an end-of-life issue. But last Thursday, a person who works for me, key, important leader, we had a meeting at 1 o'clock on Thursday. He notified me in the middle of the noon hour that he could not be there. I later found out he took his wife, who was in her early 50s, to the emergency room at Mercy Hospital, only to learn that she is going to face a massive health struggle. And this morning at the back of the building, I get a text that says a good friend of mine in Tulsa, who is an elder in one of the giant churches there, his wife has been diagnosed with breast cancer. So people struggle with health and other issues all the time. That's not the kind of struggle that the book of Ephesians is addressing. The book of Ephesians is addressing the struggle that comes to our lives as we move out of the way the world thinks, the way the world lives, and we move over into the way that people are asked to live by Jesus. And Casey kind of mentioned in his prayer something to the effect, help us to live like we know we're to live in Jesus. He didn't say those exact words, but that's kind of what he was saying. And so people are struggling, coming from a world of darkness into a kingdom of light. And they're struggling with how to change the way they talk. And they're struggling with leaving a world of immorality and trying to live a moral life. And they're struggling about leaving a world that's dominated by greed and moving over into a world of contentment. And we're going to learn that apparently they are struggling in their families. Now that's kind of common too, isn't it? And the family, the way God wants it, is different from the family the way sometimes it is in this world. And there is a struggle. And so I want to put a quote on the screen, a partial quote. I want to see if you can finish the quote. I want to see if you can know what the words are next, either quietly or audibly, however you want to do it. Bert, if you put that quote on the screen, if mama's not happy, do you know what the next thing says? No one is happy. But I think I could change that. And I think I could say if daddy or husband is not happy, no one in the family is happy. You think that would be true? I think I could change it again. I think I could change it and say, if the children aren't happy, or even if one child is not happy, then no one at the home is happy. Do you think that could be right? Because for most of us, the family is the most intimate part of our life. And when that's not working properly, between the husband and the wife and the children, the parents, and when it's not working properly, the harmony is lost. And life is just miserable. And your attitude's not good. And your productivity is weak. There's nothing good about it when things aren't working correctly at home. Now, everybody still with me? And Paul's going to address this subject. But he's going to address it in a context that not a single person in this audience is going to like. He's going to address it in a context that nobody listening is going to like. He's going to address it in a context that I wish Burke would not put out on the airwaves today. Because you don't hear anybody these days talking about this. And so the context is laid forth in Ephesians chapter 5 and verse 21. Now I talk about the family. I'll talk about the family at the end of chapter 5, the beginning of chapter 6. But the context is established in verse 21 of chapter 5. So I want you to read that with me. Very simple statement. Talking about in a local congregation, talking about God's people. Submit to one another out of reverence for Christ. Because you're a follower of Christ, because you belong to Christ, I want you to submit or yield to one another. Now, you look really quiet and you look really sober. Do you like that word? Here's the word. Look. The next slide will show you the context is one of submission. Everything he's going to say about a family is in the context of submission. And we don't like the word at all. It's just not natural. You know, really everything I've said before, everything about coming into the kingdom of Jesus Christ is not all that natural. It's natural for me to talk in one way like the world talks and talk badly about people and all this kind of stuff. It's not natural for me to come into this kingdom and learn how to talk differently. It is so easy and so natural in this world to be immoral and to dip my toes into immoral things. It's so unnatural to come over to the kingdom of light and to live a moral life. It is so natural in this world for me to want more and more and more and crave more and more and more. And it is so unnatural for me to walk over into the kingdom of God and try to figure out how to learn to be content with where God has placed me at this moment. And it is not natural at all for any of us to want to submit. Do you agree with that? Sue's had an aunt named Billy. That's Zonel's aunt. It's Greg's aunt. It's Pat's sister. Billy King, some of you might remember her. She lived in a time when automobiles did not even have a seatbelt. Then she lived during a time when they started first putting seatbelts in cars. And we had them there and nobody would wear them. And then she lived during the time when we were required by our government to wear seatbelts. But she never, ever called them a seatbelt. Ever. That I know of. She called them a nader belt. Because it was a consumer advocate named Ralph Nader who changed a lot of things in America and got the push to have legislation so we all wear seatbelts. And I think it was her little way of protesting. I think it was her little way of saying, I don't like it. I don't like to yield to this. I don't like my nadir belt. Because that's the way we are. We don't want people telling us what to do. Frank Sinatra made a song famous. Elvis Presley sang it much better. And I liked it with Elvis. But when you really look at this song, it states what America and what the world is like. The title of the song, My Way. Here's one little line in it. Regrets. I've had a few, but then again, too few to mention. I did what I had to do. I saw it through without exemption. I planned each charted course, each careful step along the byway, and much more than that, I did it my way. That's the battle cry. That's the lifestyle cry of the world. I did it my way. We just don't like the word submission. Everybody understand? And yet the context of family is in submission. I want to tell you two things about submission. They're both on one slide. Do you realize that submission is necessary for there to be order in any kind of organism or organization? Submission has to be there for there to be order. And I know that without the submission, without me yielding at times to other people's desire, the result is going to be chaos in an organization. For if everybody here says it's got to be my way, I'm doing it my way, chaos is going to be the result. And if everybody in the city of Cordell says it's going to be my way, chaos is going to be the result. And if everybody in the house says it's going to be my way, if she says it and he says it and they say it my way, there's going to be chaos. And along with chaos, there is a price to pay. There is always a price to pay when there is a lack of submission. Now, I am well aware that you could be a citizen of certain countries that are ruled by a cruel dictator. I am well aware you could be a citizen of a country that's ruled by an ugly regime. And you could not want to protest, and probably you might not want to submit, and you might want to protest, but the price to pay could be imprisonment and could be your life. And right here in our own area, we have a system of laws, and they are traffic laws. In fact, I don't understand it, but this morning early, I was just kind of going out that end of town just to see how much water was around, and there was a Cordell policeman out there past Tractor Supply, and I can't figure out what he's doing there early in the morning. But I had this idea that I leave town too fast and I don't submit, there's going to be a price to pay. He'll hand me a little piece of paper, which will require me to go pay a amount of money. And if I keep refusing to submit to traffic laws, the price will get stiffer and stiffer and difficult. And there are these rules and laws that have to do with taxation. And if I don't submit, there will be a price to pay. And the price will get worse if I continue to refuse to submit. Everybody understanding what I'm saying? And there are gun laws, and we saw just this last week, when you violate a gun law, there is a price to be paid. So in an orderly society, there has to be submission. And if you don't submit, there is a price to be paid. Now, are you liking this yet? I'm telling you, nobody likes this. And no one wants to talk about it. It's going to get worse. I've got just 10 minutes to make it worse. And I'm going to definitely use the 10 minutes in that direction. Because now we're coming to the family. Now we're coming to the family. And I'm telling you, if there is not submission in the family, there is going to be chaos in the family. And I'm telling you that if you refuse over and over again to submit inside that family, that there's going to be a price to be paid. And the price is peace, and the price is harmony, and the price is division, and the price is misery, and all those words tie into it. Everybody still okay on this Father's Day? It gets worse. So let me read, beginning in verse 22, because first he talks to wives. Nobody uses this verse anymore. We just don't like to talk about it. Wives, in families, God way, wives, submit yourselves to your own husbands as to the Lord, for the husband is the head of the wife, as Christ is the head of the church, his body, of which he is the Savior. Now, as the church submits to Christ, by the way, now that's what they're struggling with in Ephesus. You got that? They're struggling with coming out of the world over here into the kingdom of light and how that change in life. So they're struggling. So as the church is trying to submit to Christ, so wives submit to their husbands in everything. And you husbands are really liking this, aren't you? But I don't want you to take this too far out of context. The context keeps going. But let me ask you this question. Do you believe the Bible? Do you really believe the Bible? Do you believe all the Bible? Do you believe it all? You see, there are some parts of the Bible that are easy for me to believe. And there are some that are not easy for me to believe. But if you go home today and you'll read Genesis chapters 1, 2, and 3, I'll tell you what you're going to find. Man was created first. Woman was created out of man, and woman was created for man. And Paul will refer to that order over and over and over again. Now, does that mean the woman in the sight of God is less than the man? No. Does that mean the woman is not smarter than the man at times? And I'm trying not to look at some of you fellas, because I know that in your house, the woman is smarter than you. Okay? Is it sometimes true that the woman knows more about business than the man? Greg Turner can't even turn on his computer. His wife runs his computer. His wife runs the finances. Who's the smartest? What does it take to give a dog a shot? It does not mean she's less. It just means at times the woman is going to have to look to the husband and submit her, yield her will to his will. But I want you to read the next few verses. Because I'm going to tell all you husbands and fathers, you're going to have to do the same. You're going to have to do the same. Look at what it says. It continues. Husbands, love your wives, just as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her. Now, I'm going to tell you something about love. Love is so closely tied to submission that you really can't separate them. In fact, Jesus submitted himself to scourging and to a crown of thorns and to humiliation and to death on a cross and spikes for the sake of those of us who would be called in this passage his bride. Now, if Jesus did that for her out of love, what do you think you and I as husbands are supposed to do for her out of love? And so if she thinks this one way, and I may think another way, it is not a dictatorship, and it's not a legislative authority. It is we used to call it give and take. But I yield over and over and over again to what she wants. And she yields over and over again to what I want. And we end up having a marriage that lasts. Family, God's way. Does that make any sense to you at all? I'm not trying to say anything that's not up there. I'm just saying submission is the way the world works. And without it, there's chaos. And without it, there's a price to pay. And our families today are paying big prices because we don't understand how God wants a family. Our families are getting destroyed today because God doesn't understand it. Go ahead and read the next. We're not done. You'd like to be done, I know. So would I. Children, obey your parents in the Lord. And some people kind of use that in the Lord and kind of take it out of context. For reverence for Christ, obey your parents. What does that word obey mean? Yield, submit, honor your father and your mother. That's one of the first commandments with a promise. So that it may go well with you and you may enjoy a long life here on this earth. Children, obey. Well, I'm telling you, you can't make a family work unless the children obey their parents, submit to their parents. But I got to tell parents something. If you approach this life in a family as though you are the boss and you are the dictator and you are the one who knows it all, your children will only obey when you've got the power to beat them half to death. Bert, erase that one. They'll only obey that long. And they'll be out of here as fast as they can be. So it says this. You fathers need to understand something. I want children to obey. I want children to yield to you. But do not exasperate them. Do not be heavy-handed and harsh and mean. And that's the way some husbands want to do it. And that's the way some fathers want to do it. But it never works. There's chaos as a result of that. And there's price to be paid. It only works when in kindness and in love and in gentleness we all submit one to another. I will tell you, I don't think you can live as a father without submitting to the desire of your children ahead of your own often. I don't think you can do it successfully. And I don't think you can live as a husband without submitting to her desire, what she wants on a given subject. I don't think you can have a happy marriage without doing that over and over and over again. And I don't think you can have a happy marriage unless he and she submit. And so she has to submit what she wants over and over and over again. And I get sick and tired of it. I get sick and tired of it, folks. I get tired of obeying the speed limit. I get tired of all kinds of things. I don't like to pay taxes. There's just a lot of stuff. And sometimes I kind of think my wife's half crazy. No, that's kind of a joke, but kind of I think, where'd that come from? Any of you fellas ever thought that? Where's that coming from? But you have to pay attention. And how many times do you think she's thought, I'm half crazy? Or maybe 75%. And how many times she's thinking, where'd that come from? Has he lost his mind? And how many times do you think our children have literally told me, Dad, have you lost your mind? Why are you doing that again? But our family is working right now, because we're all trying to do family God's way. We're not doing it perfectly, but it's all in the context of submission. Is that making any sense to you at all, or have I just had my last sermon here? I mean, it wouldn't be all that bad. We had another preacher preach last week, and Burke said he had normal ears. When he put this on me, he said, I got to stretch these out to go over these big ears, yours. And I kind of got offended and thought, I might just quit anyway. So, I know it's a hard lesson. I know it's hard. And I know I don't know what I'm talking about on some of it. I just know two basic things. You cannot have order unless you have submission. Without submission, there's going to be a chaos. And when you refuse to submit, there is going to be a price to pay of some kind. And I don't believe in authoritative anything in the family. And I don't believe in authoritarianism even in the place where I work. I don't think it's ever supposed to have been that way. I don't believe leadership. If leaders know what they're talking about and what they're doing, they never scream, they never yell, they never say it's going to be this way or no way. That went out the window years ago and should have gone out before that. That's not how to live this life. And so, Elvis shouldn't have sung the song. My way is not the right way. It's our way. Wow. It's past time to take communion. Jesus is asking us to live like this, okay? It's not Ken. Ken didn't want to preach this lesson. I wanted Greg to call Mel back. Now you want Mel back. But out of reverence for Christ, we have to consider the passage. Out of reverence for Christ, we have to consider the passage. Because what he did for us is go to a cross and die for us, that we might be facing salvation. And I'm telling you, this thing with Nell is big. It's hard. Until you realize she's just a little step away from what Jesus came to give us. Life forever and forever. That's what he did. Is it too much to ask for me to submit to her, to love her? Is that too much to ask? So because of Jesus, we get to live well and forever.